it out or get it off the
Not do it.
pull it out of the mix. So okay, so we're going live, Don. But this is cool because we're gonna do some technical stuff live. People can watch the sausage making. And we are live, folks. And Don, I always check to make sure that we are broadcasting on all the formats. So while people kind of arrive, I will check. I don't have the budget yet to have 5 screens where I have everything. But you can hear me, okay, Don?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And we are live on all the platforms. It looks like, and awesome. Yep, I see it there on Facebook. And let's pull the questions up. We already have a few people here. Hey, Scott Fisher. Hey, Fern Brodkin. How are you? We're just doing. Those of you who've come to my show often, you know that I often bring my guest in about 20 or 30 minutes later. But we thought we would start right out with Don, and we would kind of do some of the sausage making live. And of course, we refer to a soy and wheat gluten based sausage. Uh, so, okay, great. We are now live everywhere, and I can see your comments on YouTube if you so choose. Great. And a couple people watching on YouTube. Well, all right, folks. How are you today? RB Kratz, Frank Bellina, Don. People are saying hi. How are you? Bassam says, "Whip it on us." So, ladies and gentlemen, you know, what can I say? You know what? Rather than an introduction, you're gonna get to know this man today if you don't know him. But a quick introduction, if I could ever be quick, is to just say keyboard player, synthesist, someone a lot of people know from the Mothers of Invention, which would be enough. I mean, that would be, you're in the books there for being on from 1966 to 74, all those wonderful Mothers of Invention albums from Absolutely Free up to, I guess, what was the last one you're on, Don? Roxy and Elsewhere, probably. And then a bunch of the other stuff later. So people know him from there. Today, you're going to get to know a little bit more about him and about some of the other things he's done. He's a composer. He's done orchestral music, jazz, electronic music. He's done all kinds of things. He's 88 years old. He's a tennis enthusiast. He's all kinds of stuff. And he's here on Meatless Monday because back in the 50s, he did the crazy thing of quitting eating meat in the 50s, which must have been crazy. So we're going to talk about all that. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Don Preston. How are you, Don?
I'm good. Considering,
Yeah.
being 88, I'm blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, and going on and on with that kind of stuff. But actually feel great, and I'm playing tennis with Bunk tomorrow.
Tennis with Bunk Gardner. You're 88. He's 87, right?
I think might be 88. I'm not sure yet. I'm not.
Folks, no complaints from any of us, right?
Right.
Listen to these guys, and still making music. Tell us a little bit. We're going to come back and forth to music, but you're sitting in your studio right now, so you're making music every day almost, right? Are you?
Well, some of the aspects of making music is also making the stuff that makes the music. Like CDs and stuff like that, and you have to get jewel boxes, and you have to get the artwork. And this project I'm working on right now is called Reflections.
Okay.
It's 5 etudes I wrote in March for piano, and those etudes I just sketched out some ideas and sat down and started playing them, and and I luckily recorded what I was doing, and I just kept playing. And
Great.
the songs wrote themselves. I didn't, like I got. I think I did all five in one day, and and it was like most of it's improvised.
Sure.
So the problem with improvisation is that when you go to have it printed out, the computer doesn't know what hand played what notes.
Right. Okay.
So I have the right hand playing 9 notes and the left hand playing 2 notes or something like that. So that doesn't work. So I'm going to have to go in there and sort it out and
Tweak it. Okay.
get it all right.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I have it now, and it's coming out on a CD called Reflections, and that those 5 etudes are only 18 minutes long. So I took a recorded concert that I did with Ben Dowling, who is
Okay.
a great pianist. Nobody knows who he is. I mean, in our world, but he's incredible. And so well, here's the thing. I got a call from this guy who runs a dance studio, and at night they have drapes that come down over all the mirrors in the studio, and they turn it into a performance area. And they just happen to have a nice Steinway piano as well as to sweeten the deal, so to speak. And I got a call from the owner, and he said, "Hey Don, we just got another Steinway." Oh my God, you got two now? So so I called Ben and I said, "Hey, let's do a concert with two pianos." So we did, and so that's what's on the rest of the CD, the stuff that we did together.
Okay. That's that's great. And and you sent me quite. Uh, I'm honored. You sent me a few of those etudes to listen to, and it's great. I think for all the fame you have for Moogs and synthesizers and stuff, people forget some of them. But people know you're wonderful just at the piano. So that's great to hear um, that we have that. And I think you have a piano set up today, right? Let's sound check the piano. Can you play a few chords and let's make sure that works for the people? Okay, there's our sound check, folks. It all works, and this is great because again, there's so much inspiration, and it's funny. The older I get, I'm with so many fellow musicians, and people always say, "Oh, we're getting old," and I use you as an example a lot, Don, you and Bunk and all those guys, and I say, "Hey, man, Don Preston's somewhere right now, getting ready for a gig, or lifting his equipment up the steps. So stop your complaining." You know, you're slowing down a little bit though, Don. Right? You said, to be honest, you're.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my fingers still work pretty good,
There you go.
and so um, my problem is being getting older is getting equipment to work, and as we've gone over, I mean, some things I just can't figure out, and it's getting worse.
Well, that's okay, Don. That's the main thing, to just know that it's okay. And again, I'm teaching now, and I work with people of all ages. Don't worry about it. I got 22-year-olds who can't figure out the software. For someone you're doing iPad apps and iPhone apps, you recently started learning Ableton, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, trying to learn it.
I
I
mean,
Yeah, and it's hard to get a manual for this damn thing.
yeah, there's a lot of videos.
Push. I mean, it's just. I mean, you know what they. I mean, I know people that work with push, and that's all they do is push. I mean, of course,
Yeah,
it's to Ableton Live, but uh, I mean, they compose on push and everything. I mean, the whole thing.
yeah.
So I got interested in it because my wife likes to watch fashion shows. Now you say, what the hell? is that? Well, I was watching this fashion show in Paris,
Uh,
and this girl comes out and starts playing, and all she has is a push. Well, I mean, of course, she has this computer underneath somewhere, and everything. And I was blown away by her, totally blown away. I think it was trying to think of who it was. I think it was a Japanese fashion designer.
okay.
He used her, and she's French, anyhow.
Yeah. Well, they have a
So,
close relationship, right? The Japanese and the French.
yeah, right.
That's well, there's so many lessons, Don, and in these 20 years I've known you, and I always thank you, the lessons and the inspiration. But there's one right there, folks. So many people, I'm 55, and so many people my age and a little bit older, if they see something like that on TV, they bitch and moan and complain. Oh, there's no good music, and she doesn't know how to play a real instrument. What a lesson. You're classically jazz trained. You looked at it and said, oh, well, there's a new tool. I should Google that. I should. And here you are. You have Push. You have Ableton. We spent some time last night, you and I, sharing screens, right, and doing some Ableton. I can't say enough how inspiring that is. So, okay, so piano. Let's go back for a minute. We're going to jump around, and we're here for Meatless Monday. And folks, I know some of you are tagging in since we started. Let's look at some questions real quick. Don, someone's saying your volume is a little low. Okay, we had it breaking up before, but go ahead and put your volume up just a touch on your gain knob on the top, the red one. Let's do that while I look at some questions.
All right, how's that?
Test it again.
1, 2, testing 1, 2. Hey.
I think that's good, and it's not breaking up, so that's nice. Let's look at some questions, and I'm also gonna, for those of you who have just logged in, we have Don Preston here again. If you're here, I don't have to tell you who he is, but for those of you who don't know, he's a composer, a pianist, a synthesist who's done so many things. And now let's talk for a minute, Don. We're gonna come back to this, but it's Meatless Monday. Tell us now. Right now, you're kind of a turkeytarian. Is that what you do? You're kind of vegetarian, but you eat some turkey once in a while or some fish. Tell us a little bit about that. Where are you on that? What do you?
Well, I quit eating chicken pot and turkey pot pies. Marie Callender, those really delicious pot pies. But I decided I didn't want to eat the turkey anymore. So
Yeah.
So I don't do that, and
Okay.
basically, I'm a vegetarian most of the time. I mean,
Yeah.
rarely I do something else, but
That's great. That's great. The message of my show, and people know this, I'm not here to preach and say, you got to go vegan. And no. I always say I would have Ted Nugent on if he would agree to be meatless one day. So I love that. And I love that people can see that it's for all ages. And tell us a little bit the story when you went vegetarian, because it was 1954 or something you were telling me. If you can put your volume up just a little bit more, so people are saying,
I just need to get closer. That's all.
oh, there you go. Get closer, get on the mic, and tell us a little bit what it was like in the mid 50s to just be in America and say, okay, I quit meat. Tell us about that. And
Well, it was kind of a sad story, if you will. I was in a big band touring around the West Coast. We'd play in towns that the main street was called Last Chance Gulch, stuff like that. Anyhow, during that tour with that band, I was drinking like a fifth of vodka a day. And it's not a good thing. And I had a friend, my close friend, played tenor, Jerry Galler. He was drinking 3/5 a day.
Okay.
And he's a diabetic. So he died not long after that stint with that band. I, on the other hand, got deathly sick and throwing up every, 5 times a day, and just really really incredibly sick and couldn't get out of bed, that whole thing. So I said to myself, "Self, this looks like a good good time to quit smoking," which I was doing also. So I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I quit, and then I said, "Well, let's go all the way. Why not quit eating meat?" Because I had already learned, for some reason that meat wasn't the best thing to eat, for your body, especially a lot of things they do to it that, put chemicals in it and what have you. Even without the chemicals, the red meat is not recommended for anything.
And this is the 50s where they hardly haven't even, figured
Right.
out, yeah, put in the meat. Okay, so you quit all those things, and then
Another thing that I was learning at that time, there was this wonderful book by Dr. Gilbert Shelton called Fasting Can Save Your Life.
oh,
And I learned over the years that, for instance, I had a kidney stone twice. And when I fast, Gilbert Shelton, feel any pain whatsoever,
oh,
not any pain whatsoever. And in fact, felt so less pain that I said, I maybe I don't have a kidney stone. I don't feel anything. And so I started eating a little bit, and bam, this pain came right back. And so I just realized that, oh, I have to better fast till this thing comes out. And it did, a couple of times. And so that's the other thing that was a big part of my life, along with not eating meat and, eating good foods and stuff
sure.
like that.
And again, this is the mid 50s. So when you went into a restaurant or something, like what you've told me, it's
Well, the restaurant wasn't a problem because you have a menu and you say, well, okay, I don't want that and I don't want that, and I'll take that down there, and so I was already dictating what I was going to get. But if you go into a supermarket, then that's shocking because, as I mentioned the other night, uh, you could not find a loaf of whole wheat bread. It just didn't exist. I
right,
mean, of course, it did exist, but it wasn't on the market on the shelves.
right.
So we had to bake some of our own bread even on the road, if we could find a way of doing that. If they had a kitchen in a motel or something like that, which
Wow,
usually we never did. But uh,
that's a, that's a great fact for some Mothers fans that there was some bread baking going on. Well, no, you raise a great point that you were already looking for something to be natural and kind of better ingredients. Oh,
right.
okay, because that's something people don't realize. So let's look at a picture here of those days. So here's the band. Here's wow,
And
class.
I'm asleep, of course.
There's Don asleep in the back. He hasn't had his whole grain bread that day. Um, but what a and it's funny because you and Bunk, Bunk was gray already.
Oh
So
yeah, he turned gray like in his mid 30s or early 30s.
I know the feeling. But
Yeah.
Bunk is Bunk was also vegetarian for a while, right? Or still is, or something, or what?
Well,
Similar.
he kind of noticed what I was doing in the Mothers, and after he got out of the Mothers, he became a vegetarian. But
Okay.
and I don't know if he's strict anymore either. He probably
Yeah,
kind of like me, a little turkey once in a while,
that's great.
and fish, of course. I mean,
That's great.
salmon is actually better for you than anything.
It sure is the essential fats and all that stuff. Yeah, no, that's really great. So well, that's a good snapshot of how it started and how you kind of navigated. And it's funny because Frank Zappa fans know that Frank would poke a little fun at it, right? I think on the credits for Absolutely Free and Uncle Meat, and someone
Oh,
could,
not just there. I mean, well, look at the concert at
Royal.
A place in London.
Okay, Royal Albert Hall, the one with the M&Ms and the Smarties and the dressed as a
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, of course, he had me eating brown rice.
Right.
And Jimmy Carl Black was dressed up like Jimi Hendrix.
That's right, Jimi Hendrix, and
Up into the audience, and he ran up to the back of the place, and this usher was standing there, and she looked at him and she said, "You're the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life." And so I put that in the lyrics of a song I wrote.
What was Zappa really like, right?
Yeah.
So okay, and one of the things we want to do today is reconnect people with Don, and he's on Facebook, so you can find him there. He's very friendly on Facebook. We have a website, donpreston.info, and I've pledged that we're going to really update that this year. But stay in touch with Don. You can find him on Facebook. Don, I'm going to go to some questions here and get some hellos. So Sabina says hi from the Zappanale. Kendall Scott says hi, our keyboard player from, right? Remember Kendall? We toured with him. Michael. Hey, Dave Harris. People are looking forward to the Etudes. Frank Bolina says, let's make the water turn black. So a lot of great people on here. Todd Reynolds. Oh, this is great. Let's see if there's any questions. And thank you, folks, for letting us know on the volume. And we're getting that turned up. Paolo, how are you? Paolo's checking in saying, Don Preston did the best Mini Moog solo ever on Waka Waka. Well, we're going to do a whole little section here on Bob Moog and all that and meeting him. But yes, he did. That was a great solo. Ricky Glover says hi, but he's in Facebook jail. Okay. Hi, Ricky. Gerhard Grammel is here. Don, Gerhard was the upright bassist we played with in Vienna. Remember Porgy and Bess?
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, your memory's fine, Don. But, let's see. Bassam says, eating meat and playing that kind of music, you'll never see my aura. That's the line. That's the line. So
I think that was Ian that said that.
Oh.
Or it might have been wait, let me see. Yeah, it was either Ian or Bunk.
Okay.
Might have been Bunk.
Okay. So
but, yeah, somebody, but that was written down. That whole thing at the Royal Festival Hall was all. Yeah, it was Royal Festival Hall, I believe, not. But anyhow,
not the yeah. So what I'm queuing up here for people to hear. Let's see. So let's go stay with some others. This is. I'm looking for the moment, but I'll tell people what I'm listening to here. It's on the web, this bootleg, and it's called Fire, because Don, you were starting your solo on King Kong.
Yeah.
When the fire started, that we all know from Deep Purple Smoke on the Water. You were literally in the middle of your solo. Take us to that moment for a second, because that is one of the.
Well, let me tell you what led up to that.
Please.
The day before. Well, first, let me say the entire tour was printed on a box of matches. So a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And the day before, we in the same place in King Kong during my solo, this guy runs out and says, "We have to stop the concert. There's a fire warning." And so we had to stop, and then they said, "Okay, it's okay now," and so we continued playing. But how about that?
The same part of the song.
Same place in the same song.
It's the damn Moog.
Now, I had 2 books on magic. Now, I'm not talking about the prestidigitation, that kind of magic. No, I'm talking about real magic.
Crowd.
From the Egyptians. I had a book of tarot cards by Aleister Crowley, and then I had this book about magic, all kinds of magic by Idris Shah. And by the way, my wife, her uncle was Israel Regardie. who happened to be Aleister Crowley's secretary, and then went on to write all kinds of incredible books about magic as well. Some of which I think are being used in the series Lucifer right now.
Oh,
Well, I mean, they talk about,
sure.
demons, and his mother comes down and causes hell with him. Good. I love the series. It's really good.
Well, you're always up on these great sci-fi and horror series, and it's really, again, it's inspiring because you still find time to write etudes and quartets and practice.
Sure.
Okay, so it's the night before. Someone comes out and says this, and I want to go back. I think that's pretty mind blowing. Did people hear that? The tour dates were printed on a matchbook.
Yeah.
So
That's only a box. It was a box.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You can't make this shit up. So here you are. You're at Montreux the next night, right? And Deep Purple playing.
It was actually during the day. It was like about 3 in the afternoon or something like that.
Okay.
Because we, after we got out of the place, well, let me just say that when, I mean, somebody threw a firecracker up in the ceiling.
Some stupid way to the flag.
The ceiling was covered with dried palm leaves.
As you do.
So you can imagine what happened. They caught on fire like that, And so people are picking up big orange amplifiers and throwing them through the plate glass windows to get out of the room. And Mark Volman had just bought a new hollow body Gibson guitar, and he bent down to pick it up, and somebody's foot went right through it.
Sorry, Mark, but it's funny now. Oh man, but you made it out alive. Now, what's funny on the bootleg is you're starting your solo. So I wish I could find it, but folks, go listen to this. But Don, it's King Kong and the band's going, and it's Don's turn, and I think you're just going, right? You're kind of now. Tell us, because you've told me you kind of were zoned out. You didn't. People were kind of tapping you on the shoulder or something. Tell us about how you stopped playing. Like, take us right to that moment.
Well, like when you're playing, well, when I'm playing a solo, I'm kind of like, that's all that's there in my head. I've kind of formed this way of thinking when I'm playing is by not thinking, actually. And so I'm in this zone anyhow of playing a solo. And so I don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden the band stopped playing. And I kind of petered off there, a little bit. And then of course, then we saw all the flames and the smoke and everything, and people running all around, and we kind of went in the back room and we're very orderly about it. Walked out of the place, and so that was. And then we went to the hotel, and we could see the place burning down because it was right on Lake Geneva, and the lake was curving around a bit, and you could see the club from the hotel. And hence, I mean, I guess that band, what's the name of the band that wrote Smoke on the Water?
Deep Purple.
Deep Purple, right. So they were probably in the same situation where they could see the place burning down.
Wow.
So that was amazing. And of course, a couple days later, we had to borrow a bunch of equipment because our stuff all burned down.
Sure. And now, wasn't it rental stuff or something? Was that your stuff?
Some kind of group. I lent us their equipment. I'm not sure which group it was. It might have been Deep Purple.
So here's a picture for people, and you can, folks, of course, this is very recent actually in history. So there's lots of pictures. I think there's a bit of film, but I like this. Just speaks to funny headlines, because the headline says how a Frank Zappa concert fire inspired Deep Purple Smoke on the Water. That's a funny way to put it, but there it is on Lake Geneva.
Yeah.
Smoke is on the water. So a fire in the sky. So no, that's a great story. It's one of my favorite stories. And we have Mumbo on here. Hey Mumbo. And
Oh,
Mumbo, yeah,
oh my God.
yeah, everyone's stopping in. It's a big reunion. And Mumbo, I know from Mumbo that song. I mean, he was a kid. He was 6, 7 years old, and he always tells me that story. He heard that song, and that was it. He knew he had to play rock and roll. He had to play drums, and he's a big Ian Pates fan to this day. But
Wow.
what a funny circle, because here we are, and he's toured with you, and you were part of that song.
Yeah.
Let's see, any other questions here? So, Gerhard, you're in DC now. Okay, that's great. In Washington D.C. Paul Bilatowitz, yes, Ted Nugent is the antithesis of vegan. It's funny. It's funny though, because Ted, very environmental for all of his insane views. Let's see. What else? Someone say, hey, Daniel Gibson's here. Thomas Starvik. Thomas asks a question. I always want to go to the questions. Thomas says, I'll rephrase your question, Thomas, because I believe I know the answer. You don't live that far from Bunk, right? That you guys get together once in a while and play. Tell us about that.
Well, I used to live a matter of minutes from Bunk's house, and 3 years ago, I moved out to a little town called Diamond Bar.
Right.
About 30 miles east of LA. Not real far, but it's a nice drive. Especially, it takes about an hour because there's always traffic.
Sure.
And but I drive into LA to play tennis, which I will do tomorrow morning at 7. Get there at 7:30, and
That's
so I have to
that's
get up at 6:30 in order to get there and play. But it's in Pasadena, so it's closer than most stuff in LA.
a little old man in Pasadena playing tennis. Um,
Ah,
so okay, but you do see Bunk every once in a while. I mean, not now with COVID, but in normal times, you guys are still.
I was actually coming over to his house, and I gave him a TV, a big giant TV, because he had like I don't know how big it was, 34 inches or something, and I helped him put it up and install it into his system of stuff.
Sure, sure.
Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, but I'm not doing that anymore because the COVID. I just had a dear friend get COVID, and I was over to his house on the 1st, so I came that close to getting it, and I of course I would be feeling it now 14 days later,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I'm not feeling it anything, so I don't have it, but he does.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go to the hospital though. He just stayed at home and sat it out,
Yeah,
sitting it out.
and we're lucky that it is 95 to 98% survival. That's really great. And you and I have talked about this from the onset, and I applaud you. You've been careful since we spoke many times, but first in early March about this, and you were
Yeah.
right on it, man. You were going to the store with gloves and masks. And fortunately for senior citizens, don't they open early in the morning for you? Is that
Yeah, like Trader Joe's, it opens at 7 for an hour, for just senior citizens.
and
And,
that's what
a bunch of other stores do that too.
really great, really great.
Especially out here. And I still don't know one person that's got that in Diamond Bar.
Oh, good.
No, there may be people that I don't know about, but I haven't heard of anything.
Sure. Um,
It's pretty sick.
say that again.
It's pretty safe, but and all the stores are very meticulous. You see them; they're all wiping everything down everywhere,
Yeah.
and so it's not too bad. And like the Walmart here, you can check out yourself. You don't have anybody touching anything, and like that. So
Yeah.
that's great.
I insist on that. I try to only do self checkout, and I'm almost a senior citizen, so I'm trying to take care. Back to our thread here. Oh, Ward Preston is here. Your son is here, Don.
Hi, Ward. Just talked to him yesterday, I think, or
That's great. It's
day
been
before.
getting to say hi to him a few times on Facebook. We have a question here from Scott Fisher, who you've met many times in Chicago, and he's asking, did you wind up doing that performance? Okay, right. So that you were going to play this coming Friday in 4 days, but you said you guys canceled us. Tell us
I,
about
uh, they had nothing to do with it, but and Dwight Tribble was kind of upset about my canceling it, but not more, like, hey man, it's my life we're talking about, because if I got it from going there, I would die. So
that.
more than likely, of being this old,
Yeah,
and I have met, physical problems, but nothing that bothers me.
yeah.
But nevertheless, I did not want to. And there's a photographer in there roaming around, and taking pictures and everything. So I just couldn't risk that. I could not
Okay.
risk it, you know.
You know, erring on the side of caution is never right. You might as well err all the way to caution. And hey, if you miss a few things, I applaud you. But I thought at first when you told me about it, I thought it was just you alone.
No, it's with
Then I thought,
Chris and Anders Swanson.
yeah, once you told me it was 3 people, I was like, oh, well, that gets now the math gets kind of, but okay, you
Right.
know, well, I tell you what, and Scott, this is for everyone. Don and I are working with getting Don's setup together right there in the studio. So Don's going to be doing some live streaming. We'll announce that to you, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Don, you think you'll be ready in a couple weeks?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
because we did a lot of work yesterday. Don's got a wonderful little studio there, and again, he's going to play a little bit. Um, Ted Brinkley says your mini Moog intros on the 71 Europe tour are epic. So he says those are great. So you used, yeah.
Well, I had a lot of fun. I'll tell you a story about that though. Uh, my friend Paul Beaver, who is a synthesizer player. In fact, he had 6 cases of Moog, module stuff, and he was the most West Coast representative for Moog, right? Okay, so he got this album, the Waka Waka album, and Moog came to his studio to talk about selling Moogs, and he played this cut from that album where I play a solo on it. And Moog is sitting there listening, and he's got this weird look on his face. So after it was over, Paul Beaver said, "Well, how'd you like it?" And he said, "That's impossible to do on a mini Moog."
Yeah.
Now, here's the guy that created the instrument, right? And he's just saying that it's impossible. What I did was impossible. So that was kind of nice.
It's one of the best quotes. Yes, we used to use that on the tour posters, right? Because I mean,
Right.
when Bob Moog himself says that's not allowed. Well, for the tech heads out there, tell us real quick. And I know you've told me, but I forget. Didn't you build yourself a little custom control pedal with a battery? Tell us how you did that.
Yeah, I did. Well, it's easy. You just hook a battery up to the output, and you plug that into the control input of the Mini Moog,
Yeah.
and it controls the filter. So I was able to do things with the filter, and then 2 other things with my hands. So that meant to Bob, it was impossible if you don't take in the actual, way I did it.
Right.
He
And
didn't know how I was.
here's a Moog control pedal. So I'm not saying
Right, you never buy them.
yeah, this is basically what you did in 73 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I just put a picture up there of
There's Paul and
Bernie.
Bernie Krause.
Yeah. So there you have it. This is right around that time you were just mentioning. Yeah, great, good stuff.
In fact, that's the instrument I learned how to play on.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at some of those pictures. So let's jump back a little bit too to I think a lot of people don't know some of your background because let me just make sure there's any questions there. Mumbo says, did you ride your white horse? Yeah. Kick it. Lucifer. Yeah. Okay. Dave Harris endorses Lucifer. Great show. What kind of tarot? We'll come back to that. Aaron, turkey on those Zappa mayonnaise sandwiches. Yeah. Yes, Mamba, you're right. The regulations, right? You never get to burn down a gambling house today. Um, let's see. Yo, cat. Someone says.
Well,
Uh,
there's one thing that not many people know. It's not
yeah.
written down that, where people, unless you've seen my bio, then you might know this. But in 1954, I was living in Detroit, and there was this place that people were jamming at called okay, my mind just went out on that one. Anyhow, it was a club, an after-hours club.
Yeah.
Which means it started at 1 o'clock in the morning and went until like 8 or 9 or something like that. So I went down there, and the reason that I went there is because Elvin Jones was playing drums, and I wanted to hear that. Now he's like about 19
Mm-hmm.
and playing the way as you've ever heard. He started out playing that way. I don't know how. And so I didn't want to play piano with these guys, but I thought I could do a good job playing bass. And I had been playing bass for a number of years. And so I walked up to the bass player, who was Ali Jackson, Milt Jackson's brother.
Oh. Just.
And I said, "All right, can I sit in?" And he said, "Sure, go ahead." And so I got up there and started playing bass with these guys, Tommy Flanagan and I can't think of the horn player's name. He was a great player, came out of Detroit, fantastic. Anyhow, and so we played down and we played really hard up tempos and everything. But I was in really good shape, and I knew I could do it. Knew all the songs they were playing. So I would go there every night. They were open for 2 years,
Wow.
and one of the best experiences of my entire life of playing with that band.
Sure. I
It was
mean,
amazing. And all Jackson down and sat in and played the piano with 2 fingers, and all kinds of great people come in, sit in there.
that.
Anyhow, that's
Sorry. Say again.
that's just something you don't. A lot of people don't know about.
They don't. And I've heard. It's one of my favorite stories, and that's kind of what I'm here today to have you tell stories and things that. But what a training ground that is, playing with those jazz greats. And again, for some of you who might not know this, of course, again, the solo records, the mothers, but so many things like Don with Pat Gleason worked on the Apocalypse Now soundtrack. He played with Leo Sayer. He was the musical director of Leo Sayer. I mean, I like just jumping around randomly. That's one I bet people don't know. Let's jump to the mid 70s. So it's Leo Sayer, and if you folks remember, "You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, Wanna Dance the Night Away." That's the guy you toured with, right? You were his. Tell us that. Yeah.
Oh God. Okay. Well, you know who got me the job? Ian Underwood. And he called me and he said, "Hey, this guy's looking for a keyboard player. I can't do it." He called me and I said, "Why don't you try Don Preston?" And so he called me up and said, "We're going to go on tour, and then it's going to be lots of fun." Now, Frank, he ridiculed me for even thinking of playing with Leo Sayer. But I gotta put food on the table and pay my rent, and he's paying me my royalties like he was supposed to. So, so I got the job with him. I think I played with Leo for 2 years, and it was good, very good money.
That's fantastic. Now, and I dare anyone. Here's a little test, everyone. Picture Leo Sayer and now picture Richard Simmons. Can you? Right? I mean, that's if you remember what Leo Sayer looks like, then it's kind of funny because they have the same look with the yeah. I'll pull a picture up, but what you never know. Here's Leo Sayer, and
That's
right,
it. All right.
Richard Simmons had kind of similar the over
Right.
the
Right. He's kind of like that.
fenders. Well, that's a great story, and um, Ward has a great question here. Ward says, I've never heard this story. Tell us, take your clothes off. When you,
Ah,
how did that come about?
you know what he's gonna say. Well, uh, I was living in L.A. In a house where there's now a radio was a Radio Shack because they all closed. Uh, I had a house and a big room, a really big room, just by itself. And anyhow, one night the doorbell rang, and I came to the door, and this guy opened the door, and I didn't know who it was. Now you got to realize that I met Zappa in like 1961, I think, and we were friends back then. And he used to come over to my house and sit in with my experimental band, that played experimental. We improvised to films of microscopic life and things like that. And he brought some films that he made over, and we'd play to those. Anyhow, I got this knock on the door, ring. Anyhow, and I opened the door. It was Frank, but with long hair and the imperial and the mustache and everything, and didn't look like the guy that I knew. That looked like the high
Mhm.
school picture that was on one of his albums.
Right, the short
That's,
hair.
that's what he looked like when I met him. So anyhow, he came in, and then he would talk to my now ex-wife, Rowena.
Okay.
Strangely enough, when I was living with Rowena, we were living on the street Rowena, which was named after her grandmother.
Okay.
So anyhow, he would come in, and he would talk to her for hours. And one of the things that she thought was important was to take your clothes off and dance naked, right? So, of course, Zappa wrote a song about it, like he does everything else.
You know
And
that that's it, huh?
so, anyhow, that's it. And that was Ward's mother, of course.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Wow. Well, Ward, thank you for that. And Dawn Preston Abbott is here too. Good to see you, Dawn.
My goodness,
So
it's all here.
it's a Dawn Preston party. As I'm sorry, I wasn't being rude there, folks. I got to remember people are on YouTube also. So on YouTube, let's say hi. Josh Oxford says hi. The vibes player, the percussionist. We played with him a few times.
Yeah.
Here's Eifeler from Germany saying hi. Udo from Germany. And Don Steven says hi. He met you when you were playing with Carla Bley. So that's
Oh, yeah. That's another phase of my life.
yeah.
That
Let's jump to New York because I just like to jump cut like we're in a weird film. Let's jump to New York for a minute because I mean we've already listed some of the most incredible things you've done, and I want people to make sure they know Don is still doing records. Again, he's going to have a CD for sale pretty soon. The Etudes. He's got a couple wonderful records. Whether you like it or not, they're on Spotify, and I urge you to go there and check him out. His his electronic albums are there. Colliding Galaxies. We were listening to that this morning. He's got a lot of wonderful records. If you'd like to buy them from Don, you can find them on Facebook, and you should do that. But there's no reason to not study the man's music and learn. Um, Now, I want to segue to kind of that part of New York City, Don, and then we'll come back to talking about some music because you worked with Carla Bley and Meredith Monk, um, and then you're I'm just setting it up for you here, and then your very first kind of band you put together after Mothers had Tony Levin on bass. So just tell us about that period of time a little bit.
Well, if you read Tony's book, he tells about this concert I put on. It was really bizarre. It had Tony Levin, Meredith Monk, Danny DeVito, and Billy Monday, I believe, and me playing keyboards. There were one or two people that I can't remember, but that's mostly what the band was, and that was in Philadelphia. We all went to Philadelphia to play at that. It's a kind of famous theater on the main street there, where all it's changed, into this tourist thing, kind of, Anyhow, so we played there, and one of the funny things about that was we were worried about an audience coming. So Danny and I said, well, I know what we'll do. We'll get these placards and we'll put them on our bodies, like these big signs that you can wear. And we'll walk around Philadelphia and try to get people to come down to the show.
Yeah.
This is the day of the show. Okay, so we're walking around, and the name of the show was Attack of the Green Slime Beast. Is that corny or what? I mean, who could even? God, I mean, when I think of that, I must have been crazy when I thought of that. But
well, it was 1970, so yeah, it was.
So Attack of the Green Slime Beast. So we're walking around. We turn the corner, and here's like this giant parade of people, all dressed in green. Oh my God. It was St. Patrick's Day. And here we're wearing signs saying Attack of the Green. And these people are looking at us and giving us dirty looks.
Right.
Oh, they're definitely not coming to the show.
Right.
So anyhow, and we put the show on. It was great. It was totally great. When you have like that.
You can't make this stuff up. And it sounds like, you just knew these people and you came up in that generation. But those of you who don't know Meredith Monk, please go look her up. One of my other favorite artists, and like Don, a wonderful composer and part of the avant-garde in New York for both movement, art, dancing, and music. And she still works. And Todd Reynolds, who I believe is here, the violin player, he plays with Meredith Monk. So it's all
great.
Yeah, connected. Let's see. Sean says, "Hello, Mr. Preston. How are you? Glad you're doing well, but how are you doing really?" Yeah. You got some fans.
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, Neil Alexander says hi. Now, Neil, you met Neil, Don, if you remember, and you always do. Let's test it. You and I were on tour. We were doing just the two of us somewhere. We did so many tours, you and me, or you, me, and Sherry. But we were on tour, and he was in a Pink Floyd tribute band, and they played on the other side of the place. And at the hotel room, you had the EMS Putney. Remember you had
the EMS. That belonged to Michael Honig.
Remember you met a friend of mine and he came and listened and checked it out on headphones or something?
Yeah.
So, but the EMS synth, which is in my, it's on the promo of this show.
They just came out with it again. I don't know who's making it, but it's a replica of the old EMS.
That's correct. There's a company called Erica in Latvia of all places, and yes, they did it's very similar, and it's pretty wonderful replica of the EMS. Again, if we're getting a little geeky, well, that's okay, because I know there's some geeks here listening, some nerds. But the EMS synth was a synthesizer that you will know from Brian Eno and Roxy Music, and as Don said, Tangerine Dream. But where every rock fan knows the EMS is the Pink Floyd album, Dark Side of the Moon, that second track. Right? Y'all remember that? Pink Floyd. So here it is, Don, if you can see it.
Let me say that
Yeah.
the most important aspect of the synthesizer is that there's a little square in the lower middle of
Mm,
the synthesizer.
mhm,
And all that, what that is a bunch of holes.
mhm,
Each hole represents some aspect of the synthesizer.
mhm.
And you get these pins, and you can stick them in and connect this to something else uh, just with these pins. And that made it so unique. Never seen anything since then that was as flexible as
Right.
that. It's really amazing.
No, it's I'll pull one up for those of you who don't know. It's one of the greatest synthesizers ever, as Don said. And there we go. And
Mhm.
you can see the little pin matrix.
Yeah.
And you, as Don said, you put the pins in, and that's how you connect an oscillator to the reverb or to a filter or
Yeah.
right
Or anything you want.
anything. Yes, it really was groundbreaking because you could connect anything to anything.
And they
But
had sample and hold and all kinds of other weird
sure.
things like that.
And just to give an example, folks, look at that $20,000 this person wants on reverb.
And it's, you know what it's built into a briefcase.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and like when you carry it around like that, uh, no one would ever know that was a synthesizer. It
Yeah.
was like a briefcase.
Yeah. There's a really wonderful documentary about the Synthy on YouTube. But anyway, there's this. If you wanted to buy one now, hey, $3,000 is a lot better. And if you look at this, folks, you can see it's very close. And Don, I don't know if you've watched video on this, but they took the grid, and instead of pins, you turn those two little knobs like an Etch a Sketch till you've matched up. So you have the same,
Oh,
yeah, same thing, but you can't lose the pins as we would do on the road, right?
amazing.
But yeah, so there you have it, folks. So let's jump back a little bit and talk a little bit about your piano playing because, again, I love just hearing you play piano. And one of the things I want to recommend to people, I just didn't rig up the audio for this, but just a little excerpt there. It's tricky with Facebook. If I do an actual music feed, they mess with the video, so maybe I can get away with that. But so that's an album I'd like people to check out. If you don't know this record, it's called Transformation. I have it on CD and it's on Spotify and you can find it on YouTube if you prefer that as a free streaming. But Transformation, all right?
Something I learned just recently about transformation is
Yeah.
that my drummer for 20 years, Chris Garcia, was at the recording session of that album.
You didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. Yeah.
And so it's
I didn't know him then.
right. Okay. And so that record is it Joel Hamilton on bass and
Yeah.
Alex
And
Klein.
Alex Klein.
Alex Klein. So again, for the music nerds out there, Alex Klein is the twin brother of Nels Klein, who's
Right.
one of my top 5 guitarists that I love. Tell us a little bit about making that record and tell us the piano that record's on. It's a special. Tell us about that record and Gautier and all that.
Well, I'll have to preface that by saying I was walking down the street and I saw this place and I didn't know what it was. And the door was open. So I walked in the door and there was nobody in any rooms downstairs. So there was a stairway right there and I walked up the stairs. And in the room was a control booth and a Steinway and a Bosendorfer. Well, I sat down at the Bosendorfer and started playing. And then it was okay. Then I sat down to the Steinway and it blew me completely away. It was just one of the best Steinways I've ever played. And I later learned it was Chick Corea's piano. And so when they told me that they wanted to do a trio album with me, Jeff Gautier's company.
Cryptogramophone, I think.
Yeah, Cryptogramophone.
Great label.
And So when they said, "Do you have any preferences about recording it?" and I said, "Yeah, it has to be in this studio." Now that was Chick Corea's building and studio and what have you. And so we went in there and we recorded, the whole album. Uh, I just listened to one of the. Oh no, that's a different album. I'm sorry. That was anyhow. It was like a piece of cake, so as they say. It was just everything went so smooth, and the guys like were playing just fantastic. Now Alex doesn't read. I mean, he may read. I used him on a film score. I don't know, 10 years before, and no, he was great. And this time he was fantastic. He did, even though he didn't really read the music. I mean, there was some stuff there that was horrendous. I mean, in terms of knowing how to do it. For instance, "Walking Battery Woman" by Carla Bley. That's one of the hardest pieces I think she's ever written, and it's like so amazing how they played along with it and got the essence of that group, that whole thing.
Uh, I'll let me give people just a taste of that exact song. It's not your dad's jazz, folks. Probably, and again, it's been one of my favorite records for whatever 15, 20 years it's been out. I really urge people, if there's anything you go listen to, because it's beautifully recorded. So it was done in Chick Corea's studio then, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, hello, you can't get better. People can say what they want about Chick, but his shit is the best. The piano.
Also, I can't remember his name, but it's on the album. The guy who what do you call it when you doing the
Producer
final
or the
putting together?
um the producer or the person who did the mastering or
Mastering.
okay.
He mastered the record, and I went over to his house and helped him do things. Like, if I made a mistake, then we'd take something before that and replace it with that, and stuff like that. But he was quite amazing.
Yeah.
And the sound he got was just totally amazing. In fact, it won an award from it was got Album of the Year by National Public Radio.
I remember that. No, it's a great sounding record. And these days that's increasingly important to see with those milestones. I kid you not, folks. It really, if you can get the CD, that's the best. But it's so well recorded, and go down the rabbit hole of both Joel Hamilton and Alex Klein. Now, Don, you're also a big soundtrack guy, and I mean, so many records. You're on a Residence record, Eskimo, and you've done records with.
Yeah, those guys are great. I love them.
Yeah, the GTOs. You've been on records by Captain Beefheart and Arthur Barrow and all these people. But you've done about 7 or 8 movie scores of your own, Blood Diner and Night Patrol.
23.
Say again?
23.
23 film scores.
Yeah.
Jeez. Tell us a little bit about the one that most people know about, Apocalypse Now. Just give us a minute or two of a story on that.
I first of all, I didn't write the music. It was Coppola's father. He wrote the music for previous films of Coppola's, and he was a flute player. He was the principal flutist in the New York Philharmonic, which, if anybody knows, that's a very, very important orchestra. And to be the principal flutist is mind-boggling, because you have to be the best, of course. And he was. And he played on a number of tracks that I did in the movie. And that was just thrilling to have him come down and play, the lead notes and everything. So, but and the other thing that I'll tell you that is very important was that when you get a score, you have to, back in the old days, so to speak, the you had this book about 3 inches thick about all the times of the a cue, and how it relates to what tempo it is, and how many minutes it is, and how like how it would fit. So you have to pick the best fit for the music you're going to write. Well, Coppola, he had took a completely different approach that was amazing, and that was that he had this woman who could sight read anything, and she was reading the score of the movie, and Coppola was standing there conducting her while the movie was being shown. And so you got this marriage of like, and the thing was, he could conduct her fast, slow, and everything. I mean, and there was no need to have any numbers or anything like it. It was just that. And they recorded that on 2 tracks of a 24 track machine. And so we got the 24 tracks, and all we did is play the music along with with her playing. It was like simple and really amazing. It was just totally amazing. And that's one of the reasons it sounds the way it does. It's pretty incredible.
Now,
so I say that I orchestrated the music.
Sure.
More or less.
And you and Pat Gleason did some of the electronic sound design, right? The Moog. Did you have a Moog? Was it the Moog modular on that?
Well, I bought a Moog modular from Pat.
Right.
There it is. That's a concert I did for the Provisional Theater. They had a great space there, and anyhow, that's my instrument.
Don. That's when you cut your hair. So yeah, folks, great soundtrack, and as Don said, the music composed by Coppola, but Don and Patrick Gleason for some of the sounds. I know Patrick designed some of the sounds on that too.
And so also Bernie Krause did some of the cues as well.
I didn't know that. Looking at YouTube, someone says, "Who are the Brain Police?" Brooke Preston Connors. Tell Don his sister says hi. Brooke Preston Connors says hi.
Yeah, that's my sister.
That's
hi,
great.
Brooke.
So you have a whole family reunion here.
Yeah, really, everybody.
Someone says, this is Udo in Germany, saying he'll never forget the workshop with the Grandmothers of Invention in Trier, November of 2012. Do you remember that? You did it must have been a grandmother's tour. You did a workshop. So, okay, great. Do you have a Fender Rhodes piano? I believe you do not, right? You've got your curse file?
Yeah, I don't have a Fender Rhodes anymore.
Let's go to music. Give us a quick little improv there, Don, because we were testing out the piano. Let's see how. Folks, we just came up with this sound mix and this wiring yesterday, so bear with us. Don was we literally did a couple Zooms with screen sharing, and I helped him get it all plugged in. So let's.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you, Don. Does that have a name?
No, I mean, well, I could make one up because I just made that up. So
Okay. No, well, there you have it, folks. And that's, one of the I say this often because it's, I'm so fortunate for this life, this touring life. But I get to hear that those of us who toured with Don, he just writes music out of the air, and that was beautiful, Don, and that should go on the next record. Um, and that's you have a curse file piano there, I understand, right? Is that
yeah, I had one for a long time before, and it died. And then I had a bunch of things. I had a bunch of newer Kurzweil, which was after he sold the company, and they were horrible. And then Bobby Bradford's son had one. I knew that he had one, and I called him and I said, "Do you still have that Kurzweil that you had in the studio?" He had a little studio in his house. He sings as well,
hmm,
and he said, "Well, it's in the garage. It's been in there for years." He said, "Why? Do you want it? You can have it." And so he drove down. He lives quite a long ways out of town. Anyhow, we met somewhere in Pasadena again, and that's here. This is it.
that's great. Well, it sounds wonderful. Um, so people are weighing in about some of the jazz folks. Yeah, sure. Carla Bley, Michael Mantler. There's a great record with Michael Mantler and Jack Bruce and Nick Mason from Floyd. People should look that up. Um,
I'll tell
uh,
you a little something about that.
yeah, please. Before we go to another story, that's a good random one. Yeah.
We After we did the album, and now Michael, he's had like a Porsche ever since I've known him, and he went to Nick Mason's house, and Nick has two Formula One racers and a racetrack on his property,
Wow.
and so he knew Michael, loved racing and all that, and he said, "Well, go ahead, take one of them," and so Michael drove this thing around the racetrack. I don't know how long, and so that was just something that was great for him.
That's crazy. Well, yeah, and again, another connection to a band like Pink Floyd. You've and now the Mothers. You guys did a gig or two with Pink Floyd, didn't you?
Well, I remember playing in Amsterdam at the Milky Way, and we were upstairs in the office of the owner of the place, like
Hmm.
three stories up, and they had Pink Floyd playing, and I'd never heard of them before, and this was like their first album, and there was some electronic stuff on there that was really amazing.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed with that. But anyhow, that was my first experience. Other than with Michael Mantler, I don't remember playing with them. Oh, wait a minute. No, that was another group. Okay.
Okay. Because of course, uh, uh, Jack Bruce also on that record, and uh,
Jack.
let's folks. That's another one. If you can search this record out, it's just called Live by under the name Mike Mantler. And
Mantler.
what a band! Look at that, Jack Bruce, Rick Fenn, who another one of my favorite bands was 10cc,
Yeah.
still is, and he's from there. And Nick Mason, John Greaves, what's his? He played bass.
Not the drummer.
No, Nick was the drummer.
Oh, Nick was. Well, then he was a guitar player.
Guitar, yeah, because did Jack sing or he played bass also? Jack Bruce, because
I don't remember him playing bass on that. I could be wrong, but we did an album after that called School of Understanding.
yes, the opera kind of modern opera, right? Kind of a
Well, sort of an opera, he said, called it.
yeah.
but Jack was on that, and Jack sounded incredible on that album because he's singing. He had like a whole string orchestra playing behind him.
Right.
Whereas, and there was a chamber group. We played this in Copenhagen, and they filled the stage with sand, and they had car parts sticking out of the sand, and broken TVs and stuff like that.
Sure.
And we were playing, and it was pretty amazing. And a lot of great people.
There it is. Yeah, great list of people on there. A lot of
Michael's daughter as well, Karen Mantler.
right. And
She was Carla's daughter.
I see a lot of European names, Danish names. Was this recorded in Scandinavia somewhere or in Copenhagen?
Copenhagen, yeah.
It was. So you went up there. Okay. So another story I want to. Well, let's also. This is a food show. Sometimes I forget, but two things I want to say. Folks know that I do this show just for fun, but I also do it because I'm trying to build a new career. And I usually put in here if you'd like to donate, if you'd like to PayPal. Today I'm splitting any proceeds with Don, and we're gonna, I'll put the stuff on there, and my socials and all that. So if you want to donate something to the cause, you can do that. And that's there. The other thing I want to talk about, because it is a food show, tell us what did you have today, Don? What's a Don Preston lunch and breakfast typically?
Wow, that's bizarre. Yeah, I had some Cheerios for breakfast. No, wait a minute. No. I had a pancake.
Okay.
The reason is because we bought this pan, one of those non-stick pans made of diamonds and whatever. And so I had to test it with, making a pancake, and it came through. It was perfect. It was totally perfect.
Right.
And so that's not. I mean, I try to stay away from sugar, but every once in a while, you have,
Sure.
I had some honey on the pancake.
That's great.
Yeah. And
yeah. Sorry.
I haven't had lunch yet.
Have lunch. Well, on the road, it's always fun because you and I will find the natural food store, or
Oh yeah, and you knew all of them on your tour route.
Yeah, we used to Google them. We used to look on happycow.net and all that because we've been touring so long, you couldn't even look it up when we started touring. You and I started touring around 2001.
Yeah.
And I always thank you because I got a whole career out of the first band I ever worked for was the Grandmothers. And so I have to, as I have many times, but in front of all these wonderful people, I will thank you again, Don, because you saw how I was taking my band on the road, and you said, let me hire this guy, and you hired me. So the first tour I ever did that wasn't my own band was the Grandmothers. It was you, Roy Estrada, Billy Mundy, Ken Rosser, and Bunk, right? Is that?
Yeah.
And I roomed with Billy Mundy, and I already knew how to, book the hotels and book the van and get the flights. And you put your trust in me, and I'll never forget that because it's where I realized, wow, okay, I can work for other people. And then here we are 20 years later, and I've worked for, so many people. Tell us, let me see if there's any questions before I go to another story. And again, that was a beautiful solo there, Don. I loved it. Chris Garcia, always smiling. Sabina says, that's right. So Cliff Hines, answering your question, Cliff, I think you asked. No, someone else asked. Jason Hedrington was asking about what synthesizer was that. And Jason, I hope you heard the answer. It was the EMS Synthy, right? And indeed, great documentary on YouTube about the EMS company and Peter Zinoviev and all that. Please, folks, watch that because they were kind of ahead of the curve because they were doing that stuff in the mid 60s and the BBC was involved and all that.
Yeah.
So let me see if there's any other questions. Bob Ramos says DeVito. Yes, Danny DeVito. Now, Danny DeVito, and you're still friends, right? When last have you talked to Danny? One most recent.
Not for a long time. We, like we met and I've gone to his house and stuff. And I went to a party there one time and there were, oh my God, everybody, John Belushi, who like died 2 months later after that, and, oh God, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. That real tall actor, very, very good looking and, very intelligent. I learned later on that he has one of the highest IQs of any of the actors.
Okay. Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren. Okay. Okay.
That's
well,
how my mind works. It all of a sudden pops in there.
Sure.
Yeah, all kinds of
That's
stuff.
how people.
Yeah.
No, I've heard some great Danny stories, and of course, you knew him back before he was a star in 1970, 71. So that's pretty cool. Let's see.
We play together.
And you played, right?
And he played a dog. He had a dog house and everything in the play, and it was pretty good.
It's Ricky Lee Jones. Yeah, okay. We'll talk about that. So anyway, that was the Synth and Cliff Hines. Yes, you can get the EMS in an Arturia thing, and feel free, folks. Put the links here if you want of any of these things. Share with each other on that. Let's see. Let me just see if there's any questions, because sometimes I forget the questions and then they go by. Bob is asking about the Apocalypse Now. So I don't think Don was there with the Rhythm Devils did their tracks, right, Don? When you did Apocalypse Now, you kind of did your thing. Were you there for any other, like Mickey?
No, I knew that was happening, but mostly that was the drummer from the Grateful Dead,
right?
And well, I want to. There are some bad things happening along those lines, but I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, no need to. Thank you, Adam. Yes, of course. John Greaves from Henry Cow. I forgot that. Yes, that's
right.
That's right. Hey, Adam Minkoff, another connection there, because Adam Minkoff, wonderful musician, incredible musician, bass player, guitarist, probably plays 6 other things. But Adam plays with whatever they call it now, either Zappa Plays Zappa or Dweezil Zappa's group.
Oh yeah.
Adam's a really wonderful musician and a great guy. So he's here. Okay, so I want to throw another question, another story that I don't think people know. So take us back. It's the mid-50s. You're in the army in Trieste, Italy. Take us there. You're playing piano, and somebody comes over and introduces themselves. Tell us that story.
Okay. I was I took an aptitude test, and they put me in the engineers, running heavy equipment, which that's what my son Ward does now. He has a company he owns 20 cats. If you can, I fell over when I heard that one. Anyhow, I was like running that kind of equipment, and I used to go to the PX, and they had a piano there. Wow, okay. So and I would play the piano and play things on it, and this guy walked over to me and he says, "Wow," he says, "you sound pretty good." He says, "You should try out for the 98th Army Band." And I said, "Really? How do I do that?" And he says, "I'll set it up for you." And so I got a call, however that worked. I don't know what was the call or anything, but anyhow, he reached me and said, "Come over to the band. He wants to audition you." So now this is weird, because they had a big band, like they had a concert band, a big band, and then just small groups. But we talk about memory. I remember what the song was I auditioned with. It was Slow Boat to China.
Wow. You still remember it? Can you play it right now?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, that was Hobo to China, folks.
When last have you played that?
Probably 1951.
Oh man, this is what I'm talking about, folks. I mean, get inspired.
Well, here's the rest of the story, though.
Yeah, please. So you're playing, yeah?
First of all, the guy was Herbie Mann, which
Herbie Solomon at that point, right?
yeah, he was Herbie Solomon, but
Herbie Man.
my wife is Jewish, and her father changed her name.
Okay, yeah, changed from.
Yeah, it used to be Schnitzer, and they changed it to Carver because Carver means, I mean, Schnitzer means carver in whatever that language is.
At Ellis Island or something.
So anyhow, so Herbie was there and in the big band, and he played tenor and flute, of course.
People don't realize he played tenor also. So you played with Herbie. So that was how long? Like for a couple months or a year in Italy?
Oh no, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Now this was after the war, so y'all were just stationed, right? Interesting.
Yeah, and there were some great musicians there, and I learned a lot about the ins and outs of playing various instruments,
Yeah.
like trumpet, how the range of the instruments and the keys they played in, and all that kind of stuff. So that I got an incredible education being there, and I wrote a lot of music. I wrote some music for the concert band, and I wrote some music for the big band, and I even had us all get together, just like the 7 or 8 people, and we played History of a Soldier, and I conducted it.
Wow.
So, and that's kind of not really hard to conducting, but back in those days, I wasn't that familiar with Odd Times, but there are a few in there, but not much. But anyhow, I knew the piece, pretty well. I've been listening to it for years, well, a couple of years. I wasn't that old. I was like 18 or 19, I think.
That's pretty amazing. But I love that. And then you went on to play on a couple of Herbie Man albums, right? In the early 80s.
No, I never played on one of
his. Okay, I apologize. I thought you did a record, but you played with them back in the day. Maybe there's a tape.
And he used to call when he was coming in town with some singer or something like that, just before he got a name for himself. He played with a lot of famous people.
That's great. Well, I did an interview with Tony Levin, which I swear is going to be up here soon. And in speaking to Tony, he did a bunch of Herbie Man records, 4, 5, 6 records. And he didn't hear that as close as he is to you. He didn't know that you met Herbie Man in the Army.
No, I never told him that.
Yeah, so I have him on tape going, what? He so that was kind of beautiful. Nat King Cole, you toured with him in the 50s. How did that happen?
How did that happen? Well, I was in a big band playing Hal McIntyre, and it was a great band. It was good musicians, great arrangements, and everything. And I was talking earlier about some we'd play in towns where the main street was Last Chance Gulch, stuff like that. But at one point, I guess Nat King Cole wanted to tour across Canada, and he got his arranger, Nelson Riddle, to get a band. He said, "Get me a band." So he first thing he did was call Hal McIntyre and said, I got a tour, lined up for you guys, and it'll be under my name, but you guys will make some good money. So we went on this tour all across from Vancouver all the way to Montreal, and played all the places there were to play in between. And Connie Francis was on the tour, and also this guy who had a dog that wouldn't do anything. I mean, no matter what he said, he wouldn't do. And he built this whole show. So funny that just because the dog wouldn't do anything, it was amazing.
So the dog would be on stage and just not take any commands.
Right, but he had a way of doing it that was hilarious.
Right. Well, that's the kind of thing, and I love the hive mind, because I'm going to ask people again. Somewhere there's got to be a bit of tape or an 8mm. Come on, folks, you got to find this to think that Nat King Cole, right, in all these major and minor, no pun, Canadian cities. Come on, man, the CBC, or if that's what it's called, Canadian Broadcast Corporation. Someone, please, we got to have a recording of this, because Nat was a fine pianist also, right? And did you get to play with him piano, or you did all the piano?
There was only one piano.
Okay.
First of all, and so I opened the show and I played with all the songs. But at one point, they would move the piano up, and he would sit down at the piano and play a couple jazz tunes.
Sure.
He was really a fine pianist. Really good.
Yeah. So, well, hopefully someone can find that. And so people are saying, thank you for Flowboat to China. That was incredible. It surely was. Sabina is confirming, yes, Schnitzer is German, maybe something else. Scott, yeah. I know, right? Scott, 50, how many years? I can't even do my math because I'm so blown away. That would be, almost 1951, you said?
Yeah.
So we're talking almost 70 years ago that you played that? That's impossible. Come on, man.
I probably played it at, gigs,
but a long time. All the way through, it's probably like, I got shit from yesterday that I got to. Where are we?
It's different with standards. Once you hear a standard, you can't forget it. It's weird.
You're Don Preston. Here's another fun gig. I'm going for the stuff people don't know. And folks out there, this. I'm not having him tell the normal stories that you've heard a million times. How about, well, before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about health and nutrition, which is why we're here. So one of the things, we eat well. You decided in the mid 50s, again, almost 70 years ago, to just stop eating beef, stop eating pork. And you and I have talked about this for years, how it's only gotten worse, right? With all the drugs and all the things they put in these animals. So, but tell us a little bit, because what's also important is things like yoga and meditation, right? And playing tennis. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, when did you get into yoga, and do you still do that a bit, or exercising?
Well,
meditation.
When I got out of the Army, I moved back to Detroit. Actually, I went to Houston, where my mother was living, and I hated it there, so I got the Army to pay for my way back to Detroit.
Socialism.
So I wound up in Detroit, and there was a guy there who had a class. His name was Mr. Black, but he was a student, or just a disciple, if you will, of Yogananda. And now Yogananda came over here, and his job, he thought his job was to spread the word of yoga and all the benefits and all the teachings and everything, and which he did. And he built a number of places, that you could do that, but it wasn't Detroit. So this guy lived in Detroit, and he had a class at the art museum there. And so I used to go and learn what I could about yoga and practice, stretching exercises and also meditating and that kind of thing. And I still do that today,
Yeah.
pretty much. I spend at least 20 minutes a day just on that, focusing on that.
Great.
And it's a great uh, way to start the day for me. Like all the lights turn green when I'm coming in, and it's just like life goes totally smoothly through whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's one of the best lessons, and you've talked to me about that on the road, and you've definitely impacted me. And one of the things that impacted me is just unconscious listening, because I know you can't listen to music if there's like people talking or there's other shit. You're
Right.
it, and I love that, and I do that a lot, and sometimes I have some music on while I'm doing dishes or something, and I'm not thinking about it. But you really um kind of like that Pauline Oliveros thing of deep listening. So that, but that's great and inspiring. I hope to people that to take a part of your day and have some silence, right?
Right.
And you've talked to me about that for years, and I do that. I'm not great about every single day, but I do. I take most days. I say, all right, let's go sit on the porch, stare at the trees, no phone, clear your mind. So you've always said that, but also the exercise too. So you play tennis how often these days? I know COVID.
Uh, I stopped for a while, because of the COVID thing. And when I moved to Diamond Bar, I didn't know anybody, but I've been meeting people, and now I know a few people, and I can play maybe 3 times a week, and then I go play with Bunk, so that's like 4 times a week.
Eh,
And we're talking. Normally, it's like 2 hours each time I play.
folks, get off the couch. Dude is
Well,
88. Four
there.
times.
That's probably why I'm still here. I'm pretty
Hey,
sure.
it's I've gone in and out of staying in shape, and no, I always remind people on this show that that's just as important. Putting stuff in your body, but you got to move. You got to get your heart rate up. You got to, and I'm kind of poor on that right now, but I've done it in and out. But
Oh,
you're a great reminder that keeping it consistent, right?
I have to say, I don't play tennis to stay in shape. It's not my goal.
Sure, of course,
My goal is to be a better tennis player
of course.
and play as good as I can,
That's great.
hit those shots, and
Yeah,
it's
and
so rewarding.
sure, but by accident, it also keeps your heart rate going and all that. But that's a great attitude to just be doing it for yeah. But we haven't played tennis in years. We played a few times, and Dan Gibson's on here. Remember, you beat two of us. Right? We were doubles on one side against you, and my we just we couldn't hang with Don Preston, man. He's really good out on the on the tennis court. Let's see if any other questions. Yes, silence you stay. That's right. Sabina agrees with that, and Miguel Pagliari, how are you, buddy? Um, let's see. Okay, great. So let's see. Again, um, check out Don Preston on Facebook, and he's all around the web. You can do that homework, but you can find a few of his records, and he's got a record of etudes coming out in the next couple months. Don, when do you think? Early next year?
No, no. It should be, I would think, well, Erica, are you there? Anyhow, she's doing the artwork, and I'm kind of just hanging in there for her. Once that's done, it'll be out.
Okay.
That could be in 2 weeks.
What's Erica's last name? There wasn't Erica.
Bradbury.
Yeah, she's on the chat. Then she said, if she's still there, Erica, the pressure is on. And so, question from Jim Sullivan. Tell us a little bit about the tune "Eye of Agamotto" that the Mothers played. Tell us about that, because you did it later also. What's up with that song?
Well, there were 2 songs that the Mothers played that I wrote, And as far as I know, that they're the only two songs that somebody else wrote that Zappa has played. Except for Mark and Howard, there were one or two songs that
Sure.
they did.
Very rare.
And are you kidding? I think they did that. You
And
know.
yeah, Jeff Simmons had a co-write on one tune, but incredibly rare. Yes, over the course of
So Eye of Agamotto is it's like a song in 6/8, and it's I don't know. It's just I'll play a little bit.
please.
All right, it's pretty rusty, but that's what it basically sounds like.
It's great. Yeah, and that's on some bootlegs and stuff like that. Yeah, I love it. And people can also order. Rich Gregory's just put a link up. Your wonderful poetry book, Listen,
Oh.
which you can buy that at mudshark.com.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's connected back to you. Do you have copies of that book still? Listen, like yourself. So people can people message you here on Facebook and order it?
How do I do that? Oops. This is Listen, and it's got some interesting stuff in here. Would you like me to read something?
Please. No, that's great. And that's a very, very special book to me because, of course, I can almost get very, it's making me very emotional. I can almost come to tears because, of course, you dedicated that book to our dearly departed Sherry Josney, my partner, who the three of us had a group for many years. But thank you so much for that. But go, please, Don, read us a poem on that.
Well, you want to hear a story or a poem?
Your choice. Yeah, just
oh my God.
Your show, and we're
all right. I'll read you this because it's kind of interesting. I have to. Okay. My friend Bob came over to my house. He had an attractive girl with him. This is Alice, he said. She plays lead body. I looked at her wondering what that meant. She had a nice body, nothing unusual, just an ordinary slim body. About 25, brown hair, hazel eyes, and full lips. Hey, Tina, I shouted to my wife. Tina comes in. This is Alice. She plays lead body. Oh, Tina says, what's that? My friend Bob says, why don't you just show them, Alice? Oh, she says, okay. Bob takes out a cassette player and inserts a cassette. Meanwhile, Alice has been taking off all her clothes, including her socks. She has a nice body. Bob presses play and Call Any Vegetable by the Mothers begin to play. Alice starts beating herself in time with the music. She slaps her face and thighs. She beats her arms and buttocks. She knows the arrangement and plays along with it, her body turning red as she hits herself harder and harder in order to impress us. In the music, the Mothers start playing an excerpt from Holt's The Planets. She captures the dynamics of the piece. At first quiet, then louder and louder, faster and faster. She punctuates each note, first with a pat, then with each slap getting harder and harder, keeping with the music. Her eyes become glassy, tears welling up. The music gets to the last section where the Mothers play the end of Hoswada di Soldat by Igor Stravinsky. She plays the part perfectly, playing the last note by socking herself in the face, almost knocking herself out. My wife and I applaud. She bows as red welts appear all over her nice body.
Lead body.
True story.
That's Of course it is. I mean, the stuff that stuff you guys encountered, and like you said, they often became a song, or in this case, a story.
Book.
Yeah, yeah. But wonderful book. Listen, and it's got little stories like that. It's got poems. Um, and so Erica has replied, and she says she's finished with the graphics. She will be finished this week. So people should order their CD now. So folks, again, just message Don. Just find him right here uh, on Facebook. Don, should I? How is that the best way, or should they email you, or
Email, it's good.
Email.
Don W. Preston at gmail.com.
Okay, we can put your yes. I'll put your email there. I'll copy that for folks. But where is it? Say it again, Don, and I'll put it there. Also, Don.
Don W. Preston, all small, at gmail.com.
There we go.
Very easy.
Don W. Preston at gmail.com, folks. There it is. I can.
Not to confuse with Don Jake Preston, who is a guitar player with Leon Russell. And
that's right. Didn't you accidentally get like some of his email?
This is check once.
So,
check from that I got from the union.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a little note here in the chat. People can order Listen, your book, right?
Yeah, I don't have many of them left, but
just a few left. Okay, so hurry up and do that, folks. The new CD, and you can just join. Ask him to put you on an email list when that comes out. So Don W. Preston at Gmail, and there it is, folks. It's in the chat.
I'm also I'm opening a store. I don't know if I'll go to Amazon or not, but
okay.
Definitely be on my Facebook.
Okay, great. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get back to updating that. We do have a website on there, donpreston.info. That's the only one that's not on, Facebook or something like that. But
I'll have all my CDs on Facebook.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
that's awesome. I'm gonna show you a random picture here, and then just kind of tell us what's happening in this shot. Look at that.
Well, okay, that's the Miami Festival, and Jimmy was there. We hung out together a little bit, and he's cool.
Look at the smiles on both of your faces. That's great.
Yeah. At the concert, we were playing our concert, and before we went to play, I noticed there was a helicopter that said, "Want to ride on a helicopter? We'll just get in and pay us." Anyhow, so we're about maybe 75% through our concert, and then we hear this huge noise, and it's Jimi Hendrix riding in this helicopter, and his stage was right next to our stage.
Wow.
So he landed there and got out of the helicopter. And of course, everybody screamed and everything. Yeah. Got up on the stage, and then it was all over for us. I mean, so we just got off the stage, and he started playing. But that was never happened to me before, but it's just one of those things that happened.
Sure. And then was this before or after that he participated in the Only in It for the Money photo shoot? Was this?
Oh, yeah. I think that was after. Of course, that we got to know him at this Miami concert.
Sure.
And so, yeah, he was a big fan of us.
Yeah. No, yes. There's some quotes of him talking about mothers back in the day. Let's see if there's any other questions here. So we'll wrap up shortly with this, folks. So hit me with any of your questions. But this is such fun, and as I said, Don is now gonna go into a whole new period of maybe getting into some of this live streaming that people are doing. We're stuck inside. This is gonna go on for a while. Now, Don, let's just talk about that for a minute. And you've done the right thing. You've been very careful. Now, again, you were born in 1932. When you were very young, did you hear anything about that big worldwide pandemic that would have been 20 years before? Did you remember? You never heard of it till
never mentioned it either.
Okay. So you didn't hear of that till we've been speaking about it recently then, huh?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I've talked to a few people older than you who know a bit about it. So it's funny, we had this other this other situation just 100 years ago. But yeah, we just need to be careful, and we're all staying in. And so Don is going to get into, getting his technology together. Don, you want to try out? Is your synth hooked up too? Do you have the Mother 32? Did we get that, or is that tricky?
The Mother working, but then the or what is it?
Uno, yeah.
Uno, I'm having trouble with that one.
Okay, well, it's all right. If we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants now. But if it's not gonna work, then that's no need to. Folks, we literally did some of this tech last night. Like I called Don like this, and I shared screens, and so bear with us. But hey, we're all friends here. What the fuck? Let's hit us with any other questions you have, though, folks. Anything to ask Don about? We've talked quite a bit about his natural foods journey, his love of yoga and tennis and meditation. Very important. I'm gonna walk away from this with that being reinforced. But if you got some questions about any of his albums, the Akashic Ensemble, which we did that for a few years, or any of his solo stuff, then drop a question in here. Let's see if YouTube has any more questions.
Now, I should be hearing this even though my main volume output is down, right?
Yeah, I hear a little white noise that's rhythmic.
I don't hear it.
There's a little beat there, yeah.
So you can hear it?
Yeah. Talk on the mic there, Don, if you're saying anything.
I can't seem to get it.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't want to make you crazy. We really put that part of it together quickly. But we'll do one more piano piece before we leave. Actually, that would be nice. So, but folks, again, in this time, we're all trying to come up with new stuff. So hopefully you can buy some stuff from Don. His book. I'll let you know when the CD comes out. I'll do some stuff here, and let's see. Lisa Chumley is here, my sister. What's your favorite Turkish spot in London? That's is there a story there? Did you ever go to any Turkish restaurants in London?
When I'm there, I stick with the Indian food. I love Indian food, and that I think they have better restaurants in London than they do in India.
Many have said that. People who've lived in India, many Indian people. Yeah, I've heard that, because the best restaurants, are best chefs and stuff end up coming there. But yeah,
thing is that the three closest restaurants to my house are all Indian.
Oh, here where you are in Diamond Bar? Can't go.
My doctor is Indian. It's like, wow.
That's great. That's great. No, well, Lisa Chumley, one of my dear sisters, but she was there when she's saying that when she last saw you, we were near a bunch of Turkish spots, because she was hanging out with us when we went to London, and we played at the BBC. Remember that? We played. That's on. Remember that? We performed.
I totally remember that. Yeah, I mean the Doctor Who place.
Studio. Wow. I got to dig that up, and one of the things for me, it's been, well, we've talked about this, and then one of our next projects is to to celebrate that Akashic Ensemble. That's been difficult for me because it means going through and watching videos of my late partner, and it's been tough. But I think I'm at the point where I can just grit my teeth and kind of. That's very hard to do, folks. To, when you lose a partner of 20 years, I've tried and tried, and you see them on video. It's difficult. Unfortunately, we did years of touring with Don, and we have some beautiful music that hopefully we can get out there, because a lot of it is Don Preston. We were supporting him. But we went to Rotterdam, and we went to the Czech Republic, and we went to Poland, all around with that group, the BBC. So a couple questions. Ben Davis says, not in Topanga anymore. No, he's not. And there's a wonderful story there that, Don, tell us a little bit about that, because what a great story. The when you guys had to move to Diamond Bar, and it's a very public story because it was in the newspaper, right?
Yeah, I wasn't living in Topanga. I was living in Highland Park, but still, we were evicted from that house because the guy wanted to gentrify, doing that. And the problem was he wanted to fix the house up and really charge a lot of money for the rent. And there's my lovely wife, and that's the house. Beautiful. And that's my bass and my piano.
Yeah.
Boy.
But sorry, so the landlord wanted to, screw you.
Wait, this is the house in Diamond Bar.
Now, right. This is the article. So, but so you were kind of struggling to find a new place, and then what happened?
Well, my daughters, both Dawn and Erica, wrote on Facebook that this was happening to me and my wife, and did anybody have any solution for this? And this guy called me and said, I was going to sell my condo, but I'd rather have you live there. And so we moved to Diamond Bar, and we have this incredible condo that's 3 bathrooms. Who could ask for more?
And the piano.
4 bathrooms. So right? It's, swimming pool, huge garage, just on and on with incredible stuff.
You gotta love it. Yeah. And what a story, because that was the internet helping out, right? Because like you said, your daughter, she just asked for help, right? On the internet.
Yeah. And this guy came through, and it's amazing.
Beautiful. And the fact that you have that beautiful piano,
It's a Weber. It's considered one of the top 10 pianos.
Man, so please, let's record that. Yeah, I've got a story, and I haven't. It's about Don's stories, of course, as it will remain. But here's a story for you folks, and it ties in with Sherry. And thank you, Chrissy Graham's here. People who remember seeing JFK's LSD UFO, that was our group, Sherry and I, and then we folded into Don's group called the Akashic Ensemble. Which, by the way, with the great Mike Dillon, the percussionist, Don and I have a new Akashic Ensemble. We did a tour about 5 years ago, and as soon as this is in a different situation, we will tour again, and we're talking about doing something online. So stay tuned. Don is nowhere near ready to stop. So here's a quick story. We were on tour with the Akashic Ensemble. We had a wonderful tour, and this was a tour, if you remember, Don, we played at Yale, SUNY Albany, UMass, Rutgers, I think, Princeton. It was a great university tour, and we would go and perform for the electronic students, the jazz students, all put together. We would do workshops, and we did a few club gigs in between. So we would come back and forth and stay at our house in New Jersey, but there was a night off, and Sherry and I were big fans, as I still am, and as my wonderful current partner Robin is, fans of Steve Vai, right? Zappa guitars. So I remember we had a night off, and we were going to miss one of his concerts, and we were like, oh man, we got this tour, And then we realized, wait a minute, we're off. The one night we're off, it was like 16 nights. Maybe we had a couple nights off, but the one night we were off in the string of 6 days was this Steve Vai concert in New York. And we went back and forth. They were like, no, we should rest. Don's, let's see, at that point you would have been, let's say 72. We were like, yeah, Don's 72. We can't leave him at home alone. It's not polite. And we went back and forth. Then I came to you and said, Don, you know what? Steve Vai is playing. And you said, oh, I know that name. And I said, would you like to go? And I thought you'd say, no, I want to rest. And you said, yeah, I'll go. Remember that? So we get tickets and we go to this concert. And for those of you Steve Vai fans, it's the tour with 2 violin players. It's right. It's this incredible tour. And we go to the show. It's at Irving Plaza, and we had guest list and stuff. So we're watching the show. And we kind of thought, okay, let's stay an hour, and Don's going to be too tired, and, it'll be fun that we came. About 45 minutes in, I lean over, I'm like, Don, are you okay? He's like, this is great. I'm okay, cool. I check in with him at about an hour and a half, and I'm watching him. He's loving this show. And he is just digging it. And pretty soon I realized, wow, he's in it to win it here. He's really listening. And I mean, it's Steve Vai. It's these incredible pieces of music, but with 2 violin players. So it was actually like a different kind of a Steve Vai thing, because it was kind of orchestral. They did these beautiful pieces. So blah, blah, blah. The show ends. It's a wonderful show. And we're hanging out backstage, or waiting to say hi and stuff like that. And it's New York City. It's where Steve Vai is from, right? So all these, there's cousins, and there's I think maybe his brother was there. All these people, New York City, right? It's crazy. And Brian Beller's there. He was on bass. And we're kind of standing there saying hi to some people. And Steve Vai is back, 20 feet away. And you can imagine New York City, everyone's pulling, hey, Steve, oh, man. And they're just talking. And Steve's talking about 6 people at once. And I said hi to Brian Beller. We're old friends at that point. Hey, Brian, this is Don Preston. Oh, wow, man. And they meet. Brian walks back, taps Steve Vai on the shoulder. Again, it's New York City. He's just played a sold-out show. All these people, a line of people backstage, so they're friends, waiting to talk. He taps him, and then we just see, and he says something in his ear, and he says, Don Preston's here. Steve Vai whips around. Don is here? Sorry, guys, sorry. He just leaves 6 conversations and comes right out. Don, oh my God, Don, hey, man, so good to see. Hugs him, and Don is like, oh, you know who I am? And Steve's like, wow, what an honor. Thank you, man. And Don says, well, I loved it. You're a virtuoso. You said something along those lines. You said, this music was incredible. And so that's one of my most special memories, because, if you're a Steve Vai fan, he's a Zappa fan, and he grew up listening to you and learning what you played. And to just watch someone, again, in a room full of people and friends and family, he heard the name Don Preston, and it was great. And we didn't have pictures back, at that time. We had them, of course, but I didn't have a camera. But that's one of my fun stories, because Steve Vai, to this day is obviously a big Don Preston fan. So there you have, folks. But you remember that, of course, Don. That's an easy one.
I've always wanted to buy some honey from him, but never
that's
did.
Right, because he does.
He's a big bee farm.
Yes, he's a bee farmer. Well, you can. You can find him. He does that. He takes care of bee farms that are there and stuff. And that was the tour right there with the 2 violin players. But those of you who you know, if you're not that big of a Steve Vai fan, this was a different tour because it was really, you know, kind of really featured these wonderful violin players who are somewhere on this shot. There you go. There's one of them. But so you never know where you'll see Don Preston. So again, folks, we've dealt with the past, we've dealt with the in between, and we've dealt with you know, right now what Don's doing. I always think right now is very important. I love that you have learned some stuff about Don Preston as we wrap up here, and you've learned that he's got a new record coming out. And do you have some of your older records, Don? Do you have any archival stuff people can order? Is there something?
Yeah, I have every record I've made.
Oh, great.
And I have a lot of them.
Oh, good. You have that recent electronic one. That's remind me of the.
Oh, filters, oscillators, not envelopes.
That's it. So you have that one.
I don't have it now, but I will have it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, people can order it directly from you, and you can safely go to the U.S. Postal and mail them.
Oh yeah.
And you have PayPal and all that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So people can, yeah. So, yeah, Sabina, go look. If you look up Steve Vai, he's actually he teaches. He goes to schools and teaches kids about honey and honey farming and all that. So very cool. So we're gonna just wrap up. See if there's any kind of closing questions. Thank you so much, Don, for spending your afternoon here with a bunch of friends and fans.
Did you want me to play another song?
Yeah, let's do that. And by then, if anyone has some closing questions, they can do that. I know, Cliff, we just couldn't get the technology together. But yeah, Don, let's do another piece on piano, and then we'll say goodbye.
This is a song by Carla Blake called Ida Lupino.
Wow. Ida Lupino.
Great actress, and also the first woman director of movies.
Did not
I
know.
mean, at least movies that we know of.
Sure, sure. Ida Lupino. I've seen the name, but now I'll go down the rabbit hole. Loving film and filmmakers. Carla Bley, and of course Carla's a friend, and Paul. Paul left us right just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, he passed away.
Yeah,
And
and
he's been a lifelong friend for me since 1955, I think.
wow, yeah, and Carla. Now you've played so much of Carla's music.
Yeah.
That's a very special. Have you been in touch with her in recent years or?
Actually, she called me a couple of years ago, and we just talked about Karen and other things,
Sure.
music, and it was nice.
Yeah,
But yeah, and her and I think her and Steve are still hanging in there.
right. Steve Smalo. No, wonderful names and people that younger people that don't know some of these names. Whether it's Elvin Jones or Nat King Cole, going back that far, and of course everyone knows Zappa. But some of these other very important people who you talk about someone like Paul Bley, and you start getting into wow, the whole next generation of jazz composition. He's highly influential, and you have people like Pat Metheny who you know talk about him. That was another. This just for another quick story. That was another one. Same thing happened. Remember, we took you to see Pat Metheny, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was a little mellower. Where after the show, same thing. Pat's talking to just like 2 or 3 fans, so it was a smaller crowd. And Lyle Mays came over and said, "Oh my God, Don Preston, right?
yeah.
Remember that?" And so you're talking to Lyle,
Yeah.
and Lyle goes over to Pat Metheny and says, "Hey man, Don Preston's here." Same thing. Pat Metheny's face. Hey, sorry guys. Hey man, Don. You know, I wish we
Yeah.
had picture. You don't have to have a fucking picture about everything, but that's one of those moments. And what was interesting about that, and I just kind of stood back and soaked it up, and I watched. Um, for as much as I talk, people don't realize how much I listen, and I don't have the pictures. There's actually tons of that for all the stuff I do share with y'all. But I'll never forget watching you, Don, talking to Pat Metheny and Lyle Mays, which is like they were keyed in, and this is the point of my story. They knew about your connection to Paul Bley.
Oh,
Like, man, do you remember? That's
yeah.
kind of where they weren't so much Zappa fans. They knew about it, and they liked some others. You talked for
Mm.
about 10 minutes, but they were really interested in, hey, Paul and Carl. Wow, those records. They knew those records we showed before with Mike Mantler, and so they were really hip to your jazz side, which I always hope more people will investigate. Um,
I also played bass with both of them,
with both of
Paul and Carla, on different
yeah,
jobs.
yeah. And then Bobby Bradford, you've done some records with him.
I just did an album with him called Jackie Robinson.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
that's available, or people can.
It's not out yet, but I just got a letter from Bobby yesterday saying that it'll be released pretty soon.
That's fantastic. That's
Mm.
another name, folks. That Bobby Bradford, just great
Bobby's amazing.
trumpet player. What else does he play? A cornet and stuff.
Well, cornet's his main.
That's the main one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So
But I played with John Carter and Bobby, and John Carter is like one of the most exceptional. You know, he played clarinet,
clarinet, yeah.
so it was he was like, I mean, both he and Bobby were very important composers in my book, and I'm very lucky to have played a lot of jobs with both of them. You know,
Yeah.
especially with both of them together. But
Right.
then John passed away with a lung problem, and so now for the last 20 years I've been playing with Bobby,
Right.
and he's like such an interesting composer also.
No, I love. I have two records with you and Bobby, and that's exciting to hear. There's a new one, and I'll share that on Facebook when it's available. But of course, people know him from Ornette Coleman and you know a lot of his own records.
Yeah,
Um, Well, Don, you've been all around the map. We could do
yeah.
6 hours and really not even, but you know what? We'll do this again, and let's do the next one. That's all synthesizers. We'll get that all
Okay.
set up, and we'll treat people to the synth side. We had a beautiful number of piano people there, and so many people saying some wonderful stuff. Scott Stamper, what's up, buddy? Scott has that club, the Saint, in New Jersey that we've played with you.
Oh yeah.
And then Todd Reynolds enjoyed it. He, of course, Todd has done a lot of work with your dear old friend Meredith Monk.
Oh yeah.
So, Todd, if you get a chance, please tell Meredith that I can't speak for Don, but that we both said hi.
Yeah.
Now, I think didn't Meredith call you on your birthday or something like 2 years ago, and did
No,
email or something?
about 2 years ago, they did one of her pieces here,
Right.
and it was the L.A. Philharmonic. It was a chamber group, but members of the L.A. Philharmonic, and they built this incredible circle. I mean, it was like a round building or something inside of the place, inside of the Disney Hall, and it was giant. I mean, it was really. I mean, and it moved. It moved like when they started. It rose up like magically. I don't even know how they did that, and it was like right in the middle of the whole. It's like where the LA Phil plays, and so it's quite a large room, and so this thing is like white, and it's like in the middle of the room, and it looks like it's floating, and people are like inside of it, and all kinds of stuff like that. And they're doing her piece. I'm sorry, but I can't remember the name of the piece. But it was one of her most important pieces. That they were 3 years studying that piece, so they could perform it.
Wow.
And Meredith didn't sing on it. They had someone that could. It actually sounded like her.
Okay.
And of course, she didn't like the singing or the dancing or anything because it's not her. I mean, she's so unique in the stuff that she does.
Sure.
And still,
Still, she's a young 78, I think she is. So she's
yeah.
spring chicken.
She's like close friends with the Dalai Lama and
Oh, that's great. That's great. Erica Bradbury reminds you that Atlas was the name of the piece.
Oh, thank you, Erica. Thank you.
What a wonderful.
Yeah, Atlas.
That was a birthday.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That wasn't the piece, dear. I'm sorry.
No?
Sorry. No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It was education of the girl child, I think, or something like that.
Okay. Well, there's a link.
No, we went to see Atlas right around that time, before the.
I see. So she's.
But
you saw.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great rabbit hole for people to go down to. I've been fortunate to see Meredith Monk live as well, and wow, great records, and You know,
Yeah.
the name of the album. Sean Cinema is asking. Okay, yeah, the name of the album with that you did on the Chick Corea piano. It's called Transformation, Sean.
Oh,
Transformation,
right.
and
Yeah.
it's is that still available? Is Cryptogramophone exist?
I have a bunch of them.
Oh, great. There you go, Sean. Don's email is there. If you missed it, just text me. You can order this record directly from Don Preston.
There it is.
I have a copy, and
That photo on the front of the album, it's kind of hard to tell, but it's a photo from uh, the first Frankenstein movie,
oh, of course, you're
which
such
is transformation, of course. That's what it means.
okay, okay. No, it's an album. Any jazz fan, any Don Preston fan, and you do Zappa's what's it call it Eric Dolphy
Yeah,
memorial on there.
yeah, yeah.
Which, if you think about it, folks, that song as a jazz trio arrangement is wow. That's pretty ballsy, but it's
Well, it is a jazz tune, in
course,
my book, anyhow.
of course. Just I guess on the record, you guys had fleshed out with a bit of ensemble.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Just incredible, folks. Go get that one. And like we just heard, you can actually buy the CD from the artist, and so you should do that.
No, I make all my CDs except that one.
Right, that one.
I still I got that from Jeff Gautier, at Cryptogramophone, and he still has a bunch. I think he stopped. I don't think Cryptogramophone exists anymore. That's what Chris told me a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And but he still had a bunch of these, and I think he still has some more. If I sell all of these.
Right. Okay. Well,
If that doesn't work, I'll make some of my own.
let's let's have people. And there's a John Carter tune on there, and
Oh yeah, Transformation.
Oh, that's okay. That's the one that's his.
Yeah.
And you do Ode to the Flower Maiden too. Okay, great.
That's John's as well. It's a ballad.
That's great. So well, all right, folks. I know we've said goodbye, but here we are really saying goodbye. And let's see. Don, one more question from YouTube. Someone says, Don, as an electronic musician pioneer, do you have any preference or love or nostalgia for those older instruments? Or do you prefer newer technology? I think I know the answer.
Well, first of all, I am not the pioneer like Luigi Nono and what's his name?
Theremin, and there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people were doing electronic music in the 50s.
Right.
And that's what I was listening to at that time. So that's how I got involved, with that kind of music. And two of my closest friends back in the day was Lewis and B.B. Barron, who did the score for Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
It was all electronic music. I've been in their garage and seen what they recorded that on and with, I should say. But
okay, but do you don't have a preference then from older or newer stuff? I suspect.
I didn't quite understand the question because I'm not sure what you're asking.
I think the person, I think it's a guy. I'm not sure, but I think the person was just asking, do you have a preference? Do you prefer the older analog stuff like a mini Moog or a modular or an ARP, or do you prefer that you can kind of duplicate things with software and
the problem with new stuff is that it's digital, and you cannot smoothly go from one thing to another. And when you have analog music, that's all these old synthesizers, you turn a knob, you know, you can just turn a knob and it goes from this to that. And you cannot do that with digital stuff. I mean, actually, they may have come close to allowing you to do that, but as far as I know, most of the digital stuff is like it's either this or that. It's not, you know, going from this to that.
Yes, they're closing the gap, as you said, but I know you have quite a few analog instruments sitting right with you. But you like iPad apps and all that, right? iPhone apps. You're always playing on.
Oh, of course, sure. I mean, you know, there's always a bunch of stuff, and uh, one of my favorite. I can't even remember the name of it now. Absinthe.
Absinthe. Oh yeah,
Oh boy, they have some incredible stuff.
good one.
Yeah.
Native Instruments. Yeah.
Right, native.
There's a shot of BB and Lewis Barron.
Oh my God! Look at that! Look at BB. Oh yeah, that's their studio.
Talk about.
That's great. That's how do you do that, Andre?
I know, right? Just screen sharing. And it's funny because people can see what the algorithms are spitting to me in ads, like yeah, more synthesizers, Sweetwater.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
But no, we live in a wonderful time, and again, studying this history is so important, folks. If you don't know the Forbidden Planet, wonderful sci-fi movie, but also a wonderful soundtrack.
Well, my biggest problem with that movie, I mean, with the sound, is that they had them do the sound effects along with the movie music, and frankly, you could barely tell them apart. You know,
Well, yeah, that's
because they're doing the sound effects with the same equipment, you know, and it sounds like music.
Yeah,
and the music sounds like sound effects. So, you know, but other than that, it was brilliant. What they did was brilliant.
they really did, and a lot of it's just tape, using tape effects and
Tape loops and oscillators. Yeah.
reverb and just
Yeah.
I listen to it all the time, and it's an abject lesson in how little you need. I mean, if you just have a little echo, a little reverb,
Yeah.
you have a little bit of something that's
Well, now we have Chaos Pad that does all of that with effortlessly, and no tapes and no.
That's right. It's all there. So I promise you, folks, we'll do another one of these, and this is what it'll be like. You just got a preview. We're just going to go into synthesizers with Don. We're going to talk about him knowing Bob Moog and reuniting with Bob Moog at a Project Object tour. Bob Moog came and saw us play. So that's your preview. We're gonna bring Don back because his stories are so voluminous. We can't squeeze it into the 2.5 hours. Don, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we'll see you next week. I always give a quick preview. We have a guest coming up in Zappa Dan. As I said, it's Zappa kind of, loosely. We thought, this is the time to bring Don in. Someone had asked a question there, and I'm not even avoiding that question, just that we have nothing to say about it. Maybe by next time, but you have not seen the Zappa movie yet, correct? You haven't seen it.
I haven't, and I wasn't able to open the one you sent me.
Oh, okay. So we'll try to get that copy to you again. And you were not in it, of course, which we'll talk about next time. And you were not called for it, right? Is that?
No, I am in it.
Oh,
but
well,
very little.
Right, but I mean nothing in 2020 or 2019. No interviews from.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Were you reached for it as far as you know? No one reached out. Yeah. So okay, and you know what? Let's wait till you see it, so you can fully comment. And yes, of course, for clarity, yes, there's Mother's footage, so you're in it, but nothing from 2018 or 19 when they made it. But we'll discuss that later. And we do have a guest coming up either next week, or I think it's going to be next week. Stacy Tunis, who do you know Stacy Tunis?
No, I don't.
You forget, but when we played with the grandmothers in Zappanale, when you and I played with you guys, 2002.
Uh-huh.
Stacy Tunis was there, and she's a
Oh, wow.
filmmaker and a
Oh.
a creative. She's a writer. She's a director. Her brother happens to be Scott Tunis, the bass player
Oh, of course.
in '81 till the end of Zappa's. So
The 88 band massacre.
well, yeah, the '88 Fan Massacre. But everyone's friends again, so that's good. But Stacy, you wouldn't remember, but you met her, 18 years ago. But she will be on. She's a filmmaker, and she's done some great stuff, some films in Syria and Iraq. She's doing a lot on the refugee situation and stuff like that. So I always give a preview. People should look out for that. And she does a lot of vegan stuff in Germany. She translates for a vegan company in Germany.
I have to go.
Go figure. Yeah, man. We'll see you soon. Take care, folks. Thank you, guys.